Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer, thanks to my thoughts on blank for this one. Amy plays Enlistment Officer, and she hits Gideon Blackblade. Does Amy get to put Gideon into her hand or not? Okay, so the answer to this question is that no, Amy does not get to put Gideon into her hand. And the reason is because normally, abilities on permanent cards only function when those cards are on the battlefield. Because Gideon is in your library at the time when the game is deciding whether or not it's a soldier, it does not have its ability active, and therefore it will not count as a soldier. Okay, so that was the correct answer and the correct explanation, but some of you are probably still feeling a little bit unsatisfied, especially if you remember playing with changelings, which, as you might already know, work exactly the opposite of what I've just described. And so, what's the reason for this discrepancy? The key to that question is one specific word, which I was very careful to say when I introduced that rule earlier. Normally, abilities of permanent cards only work when those cards are on the battlefield, but there are some exceptions to this. One of those exceptions being that characteristic defining abilities, which Changeling is, actually function in all game zones and even outside of the game. Because of this, Enlistment Officer will consider any changelings that you hit to be soldiers, even though they're in your library at the time when that check is performed. Another exception that you might be familiar with is on Grist the Hungertide. Some people think that Grist has a characteristic defining ability, but it turns out that, like Gideon Blackblade, this ability does not actually meet all of the criteria listed in the definition for characteristic defining abilities given in the comprehensive rules. In particular, it is not active all the time. It only is active when certain conditions are met. And so we needed something else to make this one work. Wizards was of course very invested in the idea of Grist counting as an insect card when it was in your graveyard or in your library. And so what they did in order to have this happen is they created a whole new exception that so far applies only to this ability, where an ability that says what zones it does not apply in actually applies in all other zones and even outside the game and before the game starts. These abilities have this property in common with characteristic defining abilities, which is probably why Grist's ability is confused as a CDA so often. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.